Alright, so today we got a pretty cool welder for you. MIG, TIG, stick. No matter what you want to do around the house, the MIG 205 DS Pro. So if you're trying to build just about anything around the house, you want to do some exhaust work, fence work, this little machine will do it. It's fairly inexpensive, comes with some pretty cool options. It'll go 110 or 220. It has an adapter plug. So if you're like me, you like to build stuff around the house. Right now we're kind of full with some old car content on the other channel. But check out this little welder. I think it's a pretty good value. Please remember to subscribe to the channel. I very much appreciate that. So let's dive into what this little dude will do. Alright, so MIG 205 DS Pro. MIG TIG stick. So you can go through here. It's got lift TIG, stick, manual MIG. The synergetic MIG, I think it's a pretty cool feature you're going to like. Little things like the 2T, 4T. I've covered that on the channel a few times. Your wire size, what kind of gas you're going to weld with depending on what you're going to do. You can plug things into it, which is a pretty cool feature of this. The synergetic MIG is a pretty cool feature. As I ramp up the wire feed, it changes the voltage, and I'll show you where that comes in. Very, very handy. What's cool though is the other features, but you guys stick around for that. So let me show you a few of the basics, the MIG, the TIG, or maybe if you wanted to build your own little go-kart or accessories for your off-road vehicles. It'd be good for all those things. So we've got all this stuff cleaned up and ready to go. Didn't think you'd want to see that. Let's see how this thing handles just regular MIG. So I'm going to start out with the synergetic MIG. I've covered regular MIG quite a bit on this channel. You don't need to see all that again. Now where I've used something like that, if I didn't know where a machine needs to be set, I just get a piece of scrap, I start laying the bead down, I'll turn up the feed, and if it's adjusting the voltage for me, it works. But if you need to tweak this just a little bit, that glare, you can always come back in here and just give it, what is it, how many volts? I think up to 5 volts more once you get where you're thinking you need to be. So let's get this back down to 0 because it actually works really good. And we're running 220 volt. So I seem to like around that 160 marker. And you're just gonna have to go through and get some of your basic settings, but trust me, it'll go quick. All right, so let's do a couple just quick little test pieces. And then you can just drop in and let's just give it a test run here. And then just lay your beads down. And if you don't know where you have to be on settings, I'll start really, really light. I don't know where I need to be. Just started welding. I don't know what any of these numbers are. So if we start with the feed rate of 65, it's very easy to come over here and you hear that? It needs more wire. So I'm going to keep going, clean it up, clean it up. And I typically like weld around 160. Well, I ended up there about 150. So you can just keep going until you get a setting that's close and then just dial it in for what you want. Same token, if you're doing it and let's say it's way too hot. Well, it works the same way the other direction too. Because I'm almost blowing through this pipe. So we're going to back her down just a little bit. And I ended up in the same spot again. Because ideally you don't want it very humped up, if you will. So it's a good way to feel that out, and that's ironic. I ended up with the same number both times. So that synergetic setting, really good for that. Okay, so you can weld all kinds of stuff with this. So if you're wanting to weld stuff like tube, I'm going to leave it on that setting that we discovered. We'll just come in here and give this a tack. Tack both sides just so it doesn't pull. And then you can. Now, one thing I've noticed that on the synergetic, it tends to want to feed just a little bit more when you think you want to stop. It wants to put just a little bit more in there. So just stop a little before you think you need to. Let's see how this does. You can just run around it and put your bead in there. It's been a little bit since I've welded tubing. Yeah, definitely need a little more practice, but if you're wanting to build stuff out of tubing or any of that, well, we definitely will take care of you on that. It's a nice gun. Let me show you what all this comes with. So it comes with a couple different rollers, couple for different diameter wires. It even comes with the knurled one for, which one is this? This one is knurled for flux core. If you want to run flux core, run flux core. And then for the TIG Torch, it'll come with 3 cups, a couple different collets. I'll show you that torch here in a second. A shorter end cap if you really got to get tucked in somewhere. And then special MIG liner. You have to wait and see what that's for. And then what's in this box? Well, you're still got to wait for that. So let's check out this lift TIG. So you want to switch over to TIG, and this is lift TIG, so you don't get a pedal for this. We'll switch over to the weld mode. Now you'll, since your MIG is what they call DCEP, electrode positive, you'll pull this out. Your ground will become positive, but let's get the TIG torch in here first, because your TIG torch, if you hear the term DCEN, electrode negative, and there's a really neat little chart for all this, but it'll also give you a breakdown here of what needs to go where on the polarities, because if you're just starting, you don't know. And some good guidelines of what different gases you would need. So this is a very handy chart for you, especially if you're just starting. Now, since we're running TIG, you're going to have some argon for that. So let's turn that tank on. This will run stick. Now I'll be the first to say I don't run stick, really, except for doing demos and stuff like this. So, but what is it? This 2-inch, 3-inch exhaust pipe. Now you could just MIG this. It'll work just fine for that. You could dial this back, and matter of fact, before we're done here, I'll show you this. Your electrodes. Now what I did is I just went up to Harbor Freight and I just bought a very cheap die grinder. You can buy these little attachments here, and it goes on there. Get the little diamond wheels from Harbor Freight. They work great. If you want more information on this, let me know. I can't remember if it's on the channel or not, but reach out to me. Always love the comments and always more than willing to share. But since this is a lift TIG, it's just that. You don't have a foot pedal. So the biggest part of welding is you got to be comfortable. So lift TIG, you got this valve, turns on your gas, and then what you'll just do is you'll just set it on there, and the minute you lift off, she'll light. And you just feed the rod in. The biggest part of this is just making sure everything's good and clean. You can tell it's been a while since I've TIG welded. And when you're done, you just lift off. And then you just keep going around. It's a little dirty because the outside of that tubing is, I didn't sand it, I just wiped it down with acetone. Look inside, it's hard to see, there's a little penetration there, but you just keep going around it. Let's see how this goes. See if we can just get her tacked. Can I get the puddle up? There we go. Now since these are a little tighter, you can get the puddle going. And really just watching your puddle, feeding your wire in and not touching your electrode with the filler rod. Yep, definitely need some more practice. But then it's just going around there and filling it. You wanted to get into stuff like exhaust pipe and stuff like that. I think this works. This will work a lot better than we did some demos for the, what is it, the 135 flux. It's a good machine, but that flux core, scraping it off, it gets a little monotonous after a while. Where this, the hard wire, you just go through and lay it on. It'll work. The hard wire with gas will work so much easier for you. And then you just go around it and just weld her on up. Now granted, I haven't cleaned this like I should, so you can just walk it around. So it's possible to get nice welds with the MIG welder just as well. You just gotta, depending on, well, it's really depending on your position and how much practice you've had at that position. So if that looked like that for me, I'd be just fine. So if you're wanting to weld something other than steel, so this was just this 35 thou wire and it came with it. Okay, so this comes with this graphel liner. So if you take off your actual MIG line, basically you want to take this cap off. And keep this because you don't want to run the steel in that graphel liner. And then this will just go back in here. And it'll weld aluminum two ways. I'm going to show you one of them now, and we'll get to the other. Now this thing will do a spool gun, and we'll get into that as well. Just going to purposely put a little drag on this. Then out she comes. So we got to get a tip for this. So we are going to have to go in here and change the gas. So we're going to be on 100% argon. Bird nest. So I'm laying a lot of wire on top of the surface, but I'm trying to weld too thick of a piece of material too. Because you can see I'm just not really getting any penetration. Well, I am, but alright, so let's see what that thicker wire does. So we've ran a couple test pieces, and just to see, now I know these are ugly, so it is what it is. Test pieces are test pieces. You're not going to run a weld as good as a TIG welder. That's just a whole different thing there. So let me show you one thing that you can do with this machine. So let's just say you're wanting to run some, what dare I say, like a cold air intake, and you don't want to buy a TIG welder, or you want to do some guarding, probably more importantly. You want to run some guards on the things, stuff like that. We should be able to do that with this. Let's try. So what I found is the settings are very critical. Also, so is your tension on this. If you're running too much tension, so it can't slip just a little bit. Trust me, I fought through many bird nests in that drive unit, so let's see what we can do here. Yeah, definitely not a TIG weld. starting to sound better. All right, let's see here. Overheated. All right, so we know we can do it. So let me show you a pitfall of this. So when you're running aluminum especially, it can overheat on you. And when it does, it's gonna open up. So I'll be the first to say this is my first time MIG welding aluminum. So this isn't a how-to, this is will it do. All right, so this is my first time trying to MIG aluminum. So this isn't a how-to, is it will it do it, right? So we finally got it to where it started to run here. And just like on TIG welding, stop, let it cool, because man, that's getting hot right now. Right? So the first one I ran is I'm trying to get my rhythm. But what happens if you try to run too much, like I should have run a pass, stop, run a pass, let it cool off, because what happens is it blows out on you. Now you can go back in and fill that in. But keep in mind on aluminum, you still got to go through and you got to brush it, and you have to wipe down acetone. I'm marginally happy with that, so if I had to weld up, dare I say, like a cold air intake or something like that, I think you could do it because it's hard to see there, but we was actually getting full penetration there. The key there is you just gotta weld a little bit and stop, weld a little bit and stop. Especially if you got multiple pieces, weld a little bit, just bounce around, let the stuff cool off a little bit. Okay, so here's the other way. Good old spool gun. Now if you've been around welding aluminum at all, if you've not TIGged, you've probably ran a spool gun. Less prone to bird nest on you because you're pushing right here by it. Let's get the wire in this and let me show you how this works. This goes right into the standard port. That way it gets all of its commands from the machine. And then you get a trigger. Trigger goes under it. There's a lot of stuff in this little panel. It still gets its gas from the main machine. Come over here to your settings, you click on Spool Gun. That should allow this to start feeding, right? So you'll see it, all the feeding's in here now. Now you still need gas, so you still need the 100% argon for this. All right, let's go up a little bit on voltage. That's how, see if that helps with the popping. Alright, so that's the MIG 205DS Pro. So you try to do things around the house, MIG, now it does steel and aluminum. And truthfully, if I was going to MIG, I don't know that I would actually use that function where I would change that liner and go through that, because it wants to bird nest real easy. I would use the spool gun. I think this is going to be far less frustrating. I would go this route versus changing that liner and going that route. Especially if you're just starting. This is not my first time welding aluminum, and it can get frustrating. Keep the liner in it, use that for regular MIG, plug in your spool gun. Trust me, you'll appreciate that a lot. And then you got the lift TIG. Very nice setup, DC only, but you eventually will want to get more cups, because if you're trying to do other kinds of steel and stuff like that, you're going to want to get into some of your bigger cups for gas dispersion. But for starter, it's pretty good. And then we didn't get into this much, but as you see here, it will stick weld. Now, I don't do a lot of stick welding, but it'll do it. But you can plug this in. So MIG, TIG, stick, the aluminum spool gun. I think that Welder does a really nice job. It's a fairly good price too. Not going to break the bank. And I'll leave all links in the description. Thanks again for your time. I know how valuable and how hard it is to regain time when you don't get what you want out of it. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. See you in the next adventure. Remember, go out and make something. This thing will make just about anything you want in your garage or your farm. Nice little job for the family. And I'll leave a link here for a video on some settings if you want to learn more about that. And I'll see you in the next video.